Hi, everybody. This is Tony Nash with Complete Intelligence. This is another quick hit. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're with Odel Smith of My Supply Chain Group. Odel is one of the most knowledgeable and entertaining guys I've ever spoken with on supply chains and the integration of data with supply chains. And today, we're going to learn a lot more about that. So, Odel, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and My Supply Chain Group?
Sure, Tony. Hey, it's great to see you again. I'm glad to be here. So My Supply Chain Group is a small niche company that works in supply chain technology, and we do mostly SAP products, and we have a lot of experience doing advisory services and implementing technology for the supply chain for supply chain use. And I've been doing supply chain stuff and SAP since did engineering for about 5 years, and been doing supply chain technologies here for over 30 years.
Wow.
So we have a lot of experience inside of our company
Right.
in most industry verticals, and so we kind of help supply chains companies figure out how the best way to implement their supply chains.
Fantastic. It's a great organization. Odel, I guess what I'm really interested in, and we were talking about this about a week ago, is with COVID and with all the supply chain disruption that we saw with coronavirus, I'm really curious what it looked like from your position, how your clients looked at their supply chains and how they were really using their data to better understand and plan their supply chains, even with all the craziness and volatility in supply chains. Can you maybe give us an example, talk a little bit about that stuff? Because so many people are curious about how that stuff works.
Sure. So our clients have had a variety of different issues. There's been some companies that even inside the same company, they've had one business unit will have a huge spike in demand, and another business unit will just drop off. One of our clients is one of the largest beer producers in the world, and as you can imagine, their keg business that supports restaurants just evaporated all of a sudden, right? But their bottled beer that gets sold at the liquor stores and the grocery stores, which are still open, just went through the roof. And so it's very, very volatile, even inside the same company. So trying to be able to see these demand patterns as they come in, but be able to quickly respond to those. Everybody's used to kind of the monthly demand patterns, but being able to see such a rapid volatile change in these demand patterns and being able to see that with data in the systems, then being able to simulate how you're going to respond to that without and being able to make intelligent decisions based on that data has been a real game changer. This is stuff that really wasn't, systems and data weren't available. If this would have happened 20 years ago, it would have been a much more difficult scenario to recover from and be able to even continue business operations.
Okay, so you helped us all have our morning cocktail as we were kind of kept at home through COVID, right? Your data helped us right. Have our sixth drink by 2 p.m. or something like that. So,
right.
So okay, so good. So when there are things like the types of data, the types of information people are using, what kind of data are people using to make these decisions? Because we really don't know what's coming from the outside. All the government, say, macroeconomic data, this sort of stuff hasn't come in. So obviously it's not that kind of data. So how are people taking data in to understand how to adjust their manufacturing patterns?
So our operations, the operations focus is about trying to estimate what that demand pattern is going to look like, and then be able to adjust from that. If you have constant supply, it's one thing, But if you have irregular supply, it's also a problem. And that's been another huge issue here is we've offshored so much stuff in the last 15 to 20 years that there's a complete link of grouping of things together that drive this whole supply chain that have to be linked together. And so with these issues with the supply side, an example is one of our customers is a large paper supplier, and they bring in pulp and stuff from other other suppliers, and then they make paper products with it. And you can imagine everybody's familiar with the toilet paper issues that we've had, right? In the last
I think we can all relate. Yeah, definitely.
So these guys had all kinds of issues come up, right? So they bring in product and then they manufacture that product. And as they do that, their supply chains were disrupted by not being able to get their product through some of the ports. So their port activity was blocked by health issues, and they knew that was going to be the case, and so they had to try to redirect some of that stuff that was coming in order to be able to have their supply to be able to run their manufacturing. And so being able to see that they were going to have issues, and then because they knew that they had product that was coming in, they could see that data that was coming in. But then they also worked proactively with the ports and knew that port was going to be closed. They had to redirect that. Well, there's different options of places to go with that, right? So we put in some cost optimization for them to be able to evaluate that stuff in a simulation version of that data to be able to estimate where it looked like it was going to be the best place to bring this raw material in that was going to drive their manufacturing. And then, of course, their manufacturing process itself had to change because there's a lot more demand now for toilet paper than there was for paper towels, right? So they're same
so
manufacturing
the reconfiguration
process.
of their manufacturing. Okay.
To be able to make that work, and so knowing that demand was going to happen, nobody expected that demand shift, right? I mean, it was everybody was unprepared for that.
That's right.
So, but being able to use data then to make smart, intelligent, short-term decisions about how to correct for that new demand was something that they were able to put in place fairly quickly and do the scenario planning. And we were using SAP IBP to be able to do that. In order to be able to make that happen, we were able to do the scenario planning that enabled that data to be able to make the right decisions.
Interesting. I started my career in a freight forwarder, customs broker, all the physical logistics around it, and it was always interesting to me early in my career to see when people had, say, cost-sensitive decisions, when they had time-sensitive decisions, when they had quality-based decisions, that sort of thing, and you're kind of balancing off all three, right? And the types of decisions they made, it sounds like they didn't really have any history to go by. They were really just looking at expectations, right? And so, and you're kind of just playing it day by day in that case, right? Or week by week, which is really interesting.
Yes, if you have the tools, then you can do that. If you have the tools and you have the data. Now, a lot of this data was manufactured data themselves because it was based on these estimates, right?
Right.
What are my options here? I've never had to do this before. What are my options? I've got 3 other ports to use, and there's different costs of transportation going through those ports. Plus, there's risk. There's risk that those ports, availability, right? And will I be able to get stuff processed through in time to be able to make it? And if I don't, then what's the downstream impact to me in my subsequent processes, like in my manufacturing process.
All to get a roll of toilet paper to your corner store, right?
That's correct.
Odel, what would you say companies are, manufacturing companies, what do they need to be thinking about? And first of all, right now, if this were to come again, okay, we hear people saying there's going to be a second wave, whether or not it happens, how can people be better prepared the next time this happens?
One thing that is great about this is that this data is changing so rapidly, but being able to have access to that data and see what worked and what didn't work from the last situation. There are going to be some things when you're making these snap decisions and you're having to just keep your business afloat. There are going to be some things that you learn in hindsight were not the best thing to do. And so as long as you plan for that and you know that that's going to be the case, and you review that after the fact and be prepared for that risk, know where that risk is, and be able to be prepared for it, then it always helps you be able to respond better next time. If you don't learn from those things, it's
right.
Shame
so
on
you want to have good data, of course, to be able to plan. You've got to have good data, and you have to have good foresight to understand what some of the risks and volatility are. Do most major manufacturing firms today have a good base of data and good organized data to make some of those decisions, or is it still kind of iffy?
It depends. There are some that have really good data. But it has to be a decision by the company. The company has to decide to put the resources in place and to have that vision, that strategy of knowing that data is important and that the data needs to be reviewed, it needs to be audited, it needs to be cleansed, so that and it's a proactive thing with companies.
Sure it is.
Some companies are very proactive. Some companies are completely reactive. And when you get in a situation like this with this craziness, the reactive companies won't make it. The proactive companies will make it. And so it's really a business mindset and putting value on that data that makes it really important.
Okay, another question just around data, because this is fascinating for me. These major manufacturers that you work with, I think there's a perception out there that a manufacturing firm has one ERP system. Do you work with any firms that have kind of one ERP system, or are they dealing with half a dozen or more typically?
Well, there are companies that have been able to maintain that single ERP situation, but more than not, you wind up with mergers and acquisitions, and this M&A activity is just brutal on IT organizations, right? Because very seldom do you acquire somebody who has the very same ERP system and they are on the same version that you're on. And then, there's a product rationalization and a customer rationalization that has to take place. Those are all very difficult things to get past. And so most of the companies that we go into. Go ahead.
I point that out just so that people understand. It's not as if you're just taking data out, putting it in a big machine, and then putting it out the other end to help make a decision. You're taking data in from a lot of different sources, right? And you're making sure that it's somewhat normalized or understandable in the output. And so, and then those managers within those companies are also seeing data in a number of different formats to make those decisions. So this isn't just a linear, this looks more like a kind of a bunch of weeds over here and a bunch of mangled tree roots over there, and you're trying to make it as linear as possible. So it's just very, the complexity of these decisions, the complexity of these data, say logistics activities, are just fascinating. So last question here, Odel.
Sure.
You've seen these companies through kind of the first phase of this, I would say the first phase or two phases of this. Do you see these companies back on a path to kind of normalization now? Are there decision processes, are there manufacturing and supply chain processes normalizing now?
There are some that are beginning to get back on the horse, and there are some that are just still severely impacted.
Hmm.
And then there's some that are so there's some of our customers are in the pharma industry. They're just going nuts, right? And they're
Hmm.
going to continue to go nuts for a while.
Hmm.
And so it's really a mixed bag of things. Um, these these and there's a lot of our customers are in consumer products too that are related to home, right? Everybody's been doing a lot more of that lately, right? So
Yep.
demand for those has still been really strong, even though supply may have been impacted by some of the supply situations. One of our clients is a company that has multiple legacy systems that are integrated in. And one of the great things about these new cloud solutions with the data, like you were talking about,
Hmm.
is the ability to be able to do that normalization, to be able to take data from multiple different ERPs, disparate ERPs, and to be able to bring it in for one total view of the entire company for the executive team to be able to make these quick decisions
Right.
in that. And IBP is great for that with being a cloud solution. And so there, like I said, it's a mixed bag of recovery. A lot of our customers are doing really well. And so
Fantastic.
it's great to see them coming out of this. It's been a slow couple of months for people just to wrap their arms around the thing
Sure.
and try to just fight fires. And
Yep.
then now we're coming out of some of that and into a recovery mode that looks good and strong.
Wonderful. Odel, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. I love learning about this stuff. So really appreciate your time. I really appreciate my supply chain group for letting you do this. And maybe we can reconnect in a few months for another session to learn about what you're doing.
That sounds great. Appreciate the opportunity to visit with you again, Tony. This is great. Your company is awesome, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Odel. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thanks.